This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 169. Models Memories is a show about nothing and is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where I talk about my painting, modeling, and wargaming experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 YouTube videos a week. Could I possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week, Games Workshop gave us a closer look at the Skaven squirt gun. There is a new mission pack coming to Warhammer 40k, and Necromunda got some new stuff. But first, have you ever been in desperate need of some squares, but you don't know anything about coding your own website? Well, today's sponsor, Squarespace, is here to help. Squarespace allows anyone to break into website design with easy-to-use features like the new guided design system, Squarespace Blueprint. Choose from a professionally curated selection of styling options to build a unique online presence from the ground up. Squarespace makes sure it's easy to launch your website and get discovered fast with integrated optimized SEO tools so you show up more often to more people to grow the way you want. Or your own online storefront. Whether your services are physical, digital, or service-based, selling your wares has never been easier with Squarespace's seamless checkout tools. With the Squarespace website, your customers can use whatever payment system they prefer, whether it's credit cards, PayPal, Apple Pay, Afterpay, or ClearPay. Selling your unique wares has never been easier. Squarespace offers a free trial for you to dip your feet into and test the waters, and if you're ready to dive in headfirst, you can go to squarespace.com/EonsOfBattle or follow the link in the description below to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. I am a big fan of the 40k novels, and I'm a big fan of the Sisters of Battle, and there is a new Sister of Battle Black Library Special Edition fancy book coming out. The only problem is, I feel like the fancy books made a lot of sense when they were doing fancy editions of some of like the old popular books. But I feel like it doesn't make any sense to drop like the first book or like a brand spanking new book before anyone's gotten a chance to read it as a cool limited edition, because they're way more expensive, they come with way more things, but what if you don't like the book? Like, that's always possible. I've read a lot of Warhammer novels, and every now and then I start one and I'm just like, this one's not hitting me. It's not Jimmy and my jams, it's not flimmin' my flams, it's not jingling my bells, it's not dingling my pringle, like it's just okay. And so usually I'll just like skip it and move on to another book. And so it's weird to like sink all of this excitement and resources into something that just people don't know about. I'm sure that there are some people who are like, I'm a Sisters of Battle reader. I read the comic books, I read all of the novels. I am going to love this book about Morven Val, a super cool character. She is the Abyss Sanctorum of the Sisters of Battle, or Adeptus Sororitas. Like a really, really cool character. There's been some, the only complaint I've ever heard about her really is that it doesn't make a ton of sense that she participates in actual battles, because typically the High Lords of Terra, they're just a bunch of thousands of year old dudes like standing around a computer terminal, all just sort of making decisions about what's supposed to happen in the world of Warhammer 40,000, where she actually participates like in conflicts. And if she's running the entire Adeptus Sororitas, is she really from the battlefield? And this is actually a common complaint in the world of Warhammer. It's not really a complaint because Warhammer is fiction and anything is possible, but like when Guilliman is the greatest tactician, able to orchestrate battles across multiple different planets at the same time, and yet he's fighting a guy on the ground. Like, is he like talking to Ciri in his helmet about what should be going on while he's in the middle of an epic duel? Or, is he just so efficient? Like, he's taking notes, he's doing bullet points so that as soon as he gets back to like his control room, he can immediately give all of the appropriate commands and then go back to fighting. It's always just kind of like a funny thing that Warhammer is so big and so hilariously epic that when you start to get into like the nitty gritty of like, what does his day planner look like? It starts to be like, what could possibly be on there? But I really like Morven Val. I'm sure this book is a lot of fun. But is it worth buying a giant book of it? Like, if there was a fancy edition of Day of Ascension, I love Day of Ascension. It is a book about the Genestealer cult and them uprising, and like, usually the Genestealer cult are depicted as kind of monsters similar to the Tyranid, but in that book, you root for the Genestealer cult. Like, at least, probably at the very beginning, but at least by the halfway point of the book, you're like, darn it, I want these cultists to win the day. I want to see all of my friends survive the battle. I want it all to work out for them. And working out for the Genestealer cult means a very different thing than a happy ending. But it's just, like, I would get a special edition of that book, especially if it looks really pretty and would sit on the shelf really nicely. I feel like this book doesn't look particularly pretty or it would sit on the shelf really nicely. It's got like a fuzzy velvet cover, and it also says with intricate embroidered design. That's not embroidered, that's a print. They printed on top of the fake velvet. So I guess it's embroidery-like, but it's okay. The only thing that really interests me in this is the art cards. I kind of do want those art cards. I know Games Workshop has been giving out free minis. Maybe give out an art card or two every now and again. Like, they look really nice. Games Workshop should make more better swag. I know that they've been making tons and tons of swag recently. Probably the most memeable one is the like Administratum umbrella. Like, who bought that? Who bought the Warhammer themed umbrella? But like a tarot card pack? Maybe a tarot card pack for each faction? That would actually be kind of cool. You like tape them to the front of your codex just to spice things up a little bit. Or just maybe some 40k stickers. I'm a big fan of stickers. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I think stickers would actually be a decent little bit of swag that's super easy to use. My computer is covered in stickers. Like, I think that would actually be some actually good merch from Games Workshop for a change, other than really expensive plush toys or just, I feel like they haven't come out with any great merch lately. But speaking of merch, this collection also contains a 56-page cloth-bound volume called the Book of Saints. This text is the work of a sister of the Order of the Quill tasked with immortalizing the deeds of the Imperial Saints for all time. There are six gorgeous art prints from Book of Saints full-color illustrations for those worthy of the title Saint. So is this like a collection of short stories from other Sister of Battle novels? Or the little short stories from like the compendium books? Like, that sounds kind of interesting, but again, it just feels weird that they keep doing this for brand spanking new books, and you might not like the book, and that would be completely fine. But all of a sudden, you've got this really expensive thing on your desk, and it's like, I guess I'll sell it on eBay, and then maybe get a really nice print of. Is there a really, really cool edition of The Infinite and the Divine? The Infinite Divine might be the best Warhammer novel of all time, like better than the Horus Heresy. It's so good. But speaking of the Horus Heresy and epic battles on the tabletop, I played 2 games of Ravaged Star this week, MiniWarGaming's miniatures game. And I got the chance to demo it at Adepticon, and it was really interesting at Adepticon, and now we've got it home and we're playing with it. It's a pretty cool little game. It takes a lot of the best things from a lot of different war games. It takes very little from Warhammer 40k, but maybe that's for the best. It takes a lot from a game called Star Wars Legion, where every time you have a unit, that unit has a token, and then that token goes into a bag, and then you randomize it, and then you randomly pull. And then inside of that is also one wild card, very similar to Shatterpoint, if anyone's played Star Wars Shatterpoints, where that wild can be used to activate any unit, and that unit gets a benefit from that. Another interesting thing they did with the units is some of the units do have like special abilities, like you move a little bit better or like shoot a little bit better against armored things. But in general, your units are very baseline. It's pretty much my stat line versus your stat line, which makes the game really, really easy. In theory, 40k is stat line versus stat line, but then every unit has a special ability, and then often you attach a character which gives another special ability, and then often you use a stratagem which stacks another special ability, and then all of a sudden it's like my attacks hitting on +1, re-rolling wounds, and like mortal wounds +1, shooting at you, and then you've got stealth, and you've got cover, and you've got -1 to hit from armor or contempt, and it just becomes like this kind of mess of different abilities all stacking on top of each other, where the MiniWarGaming game is very, very simple. And then you get like one wild a turn, and that's when you can pick a unit to really pop off and do something. But other than that, it's a really, really simple war game, and I kind of dig it. It feels like a really clever, really modern war game. Another thing that they did, which is just great, is another idea from Star Wars Legion, where when you move with a unit, you only measure with the sergeant, and then you move everybody else in coherency with the sergeant. So you don't have to move every single guy specifically, and that does speed up the game quite a bit. I really enjoyed the game Dead Zone by Mantic. Dead Zone is a little skirmish game in the vein of Kill Team, and it's on a grid system. And that sounds a little lame. It's like, oh, we're playing Kill Team, but it's checkers. but it actually worked really nicely because you never have to measure anything and you never have to worry about if you have cover or not. It just works. And I think MiniWarGaming did a really good job of taking something that's usually pretty darn obtuse, tabletop war game, and like kind of grinding it down into its best elements, but actually keeping it simple. I know Games Workshop, especially with Age of Sigmar and 40k 10th edition, they're like, it's simple, not simplified, or whatever they said about how the game is basically exactly as it's always been. But I think MiniWarGaming, I'm really interested to keep my eye on this game, and they have a poppin' Discord server, and they're working on getting this game like perfect. And I think it's a really interesting game. I lost both games. I played the dwarves and Sean played the bugs, but I think the game is still, some of the units are still a little bit up in the air, and I don't know if hard points costs are out yet, and so who knows if our two armies were evenly matched against one another. I would argue they weren't, because man, did Sean thrash me, but eventually my dwarves will come through and they will destroy the buggies. But speaking of destroying some buggies, you know what has buggies? Necromunda. And Necromunda got some new terrain shown off. It's pretty much the old Zone Mortalis terrain, but mushed, because famously, Hive Secundus was crushed by gravity bombs, but it got crushed, but it didn't get utterly destroyed, and so the Gene Stealers still live in Hive Secundus, but I guess they're somewhat trapped, and thrill seekers and adventurers go to Hive Secundus to hunt the Gene Stealers. So this is some really, really cool looking terrain. I do kind of like the chonkiness of Games Workshop's wall. I'm a little bit of a terrain connoisseur, and I think that this terrain would look really, really good, especially as like a first layer, and then you stack a whole bunch of other like smaller detailed things on top. It does look really cool though. Necromunda, it is interesting because Necromunda is one hive city. Now that means that it's something like as big as like a continent. It's a humongous space with many different like almost hemispheres or like multiple different environments that you could fight in. And then actually they expanded to Ash Wastes, which is it is Mad Max, the outside of the hive, because the story of the hive cities is actually really, really cool. Originally designed to keep planets nice. So instead of spreading out across an entire planet and kind of ruining the ecosystem, they would build these giant, perfectly self-sustaining megacities so that the rest of the planet could be pristine and untouched and perfect. But over the course of a couple hundred, like 10,000 years, they lost a lot of the technology that was actually keeping everything in balance. And so the hive city became like this horrible little leech on the planet and slowly ate all of the planet's resources and then just spewed out trash and garbage and toxic smoke. And now each hive city has like its own planet that it takes all of the resources from, and it basically, in Warhammer, everything sucks, and the hive cities are like one of the worst things. I'm sure there's no Tau planets that are like dealing with global warming, but the hive worlds are just trashed. And then Hive Secundus is another hive city that just got yeeted by bombs. It's the world of Necromunda. It's kind of, 40k is so big and so broad that sometimes it's hard to focus in. And so you like read stories like the Fall of Cadia, and it kind of is fun because it makes things a little bit smaller. It's one event taking place in one spot, where sometimes it's like, oh yeah, the Imperial Fists are on a crusade and they're crossing a billion different planets and fighting a billion different battles with a billion different enemies. But with Necromunda, it's really cool that it just focuses in on like one city, one block, a couple of characters versus a couple of characters. And it just makes it feel a little bit more like a real setting, or like a real fictional setting that you can like, you know, you start to get to know the floor and the walls and all of the really, really specific details, where for 40k, usually everything is very big and broad. I like Necromunda a lot. I got my Eschers. I kinda, depending on what the price is gonna be, I kinda want the new box because I like every single thing in it. I just like the vibe of Necromunda. I bought the original Necromunda from 2017 on a whim, just because the trailer was so cool. With like the Cockney accents, just talking about how in Necromunda, like they're gonna rise up and take over the world, but first they gotta fight each other to the death. It's just a good feeling. I like Necromunda a lot. But speaking of things I like a lot, we got another look at the Skaven squirt gun. An absolutely breathtaking model. I love the little rats pushing it. And I also love the idea of the big rat sitting on top being like, left, go left. And then like they have to just put, and then it's like your other left. Like they just can't make it work. But looking at the actual data sheet, I don't know that much about Age of Sigmar, and I know even less about Age of Sigmar 4.0. But the gun does, it's got a 20-inch range really far, 3d6 plus 3 shots. +1 if it's shooting at squads of 10 or more. That is a lot of DACA. And then if you're standing next to a hero unit, you can have 66 +3 +1 shots with hazardous. So you're probably gonna blow yourself up, but 6, that's more dice than fit in your hand. Like that's gonna be like, okay, this is a 4 handful dice roll. Like that is really, really cool. And I'm hoping that Age of Sigmar 4.0, I hope that it doesn't become a shooting fest, although I kind of do want to play some of the shootier factions, but at least knowing, like playing some Warcry, it does seem like shooting is a little bit like you get to shoot and it'll do something, but it won't wipe squads every single time like Warhammer 40,000. But yeah, I also love that it's random. You get, you get a +3 +1, so 4 shots like are locked in, and then it's the D6 roll, so you could roll 3 1s, but you could also roll 3 6s. Hopefully Sean doesn't play this faction because he will roll 3 6s every single time. But Age of Sigmar 4.0 is looking really, really cool. Almost as cool as our Patreon. Over there, we have a fresh terrain set every single month, and this month we have the Dark Elf Encampment. Soar through the air in the Marauder and then set up camp with the Pleasure Tents, Arena Walls, and the Pleasure Portal. This is a set of characterful terrain pieces and wonderful accessories for the discerning elf. And if you always want to be up to date on what's happening in Eons of Battle and be entered into our monthly giveaways, this month we're picking 3 followers to win this month's terrain. You can follow the link in the description to sign up to our newsletter. It has been a very fun week of wargaming, got to play a bunch of games, and I am like halfway through building 3 different units, which is a horrible spot to be in. I should have just focused one down and actually had something to paint now, but it'll all get done. It'll get done. Thanks for watching.